Hello, everyone. Welcome and thanks for joining us. This is episode number 33 of the Shaman Wood podcast, Out of the Gloom. Today is February 8th. This is Super Bowl Sunday. So, as always, please welcome my partner in crime, Doghouse. And today, you'll notice we have a very special third man. In fact, he's, I think, actually the first man, the first one to say, hey, let's get a group of guys together in a parking lot somewhere before the sun comes up and let's do some exercise. We've got Dave Redding, the one and only Dredd. Welcome, man. How have you been? How's your weekend going so far?
Very well, but I gotta throw some correct all at you.
Mhm.
I'm not actually the first guy. So, the F3 grafted onto an existing workout
Mhm.
that was already in Charlotte, and OBT, who's my kind of co-founder of F3, was there before me. So
Mhm.
I'm really the third guy. So
Third
I was
man.
one, well, and a lot of guys, not just because a lot of guys know that. I want to make sure I'm consistent, but I think it's important to point that out.
Yeah. And we could talk a little bit about that pre-existing model that F3 is somewhat built off of. Certainly, some of that has taken a different direction, but a lot of it remains. And I think you'd say you pulled a lot of what F3 has become over the years from that previous model. So
Sure,
I'd love to hear a bit more about that too.
sure.
Okay. Doghouse, what about you? How's your weekend been? Although I've seen you quite a bit this weekend. Could probably
Yeah, we've
guess.
been lockstep, the two of us. But
Yeah.
yeah, for the sake of the audience, great weekend for the region. If you've been listening, you know we've kicked off our Winter Warrior yesterday to a great response. We had the Frosty 5 Mile, personal accomplishment for myself. I've never quite run that much, at least in a race. And then, of course, the Shorewood Hugs Chocolate Ball last night. And I think we made some ground on an upcoming event that I'll let Puddle share.
Hmm. Yeah. As I said, Doghouse and I have seen each other quite a bit this weekend. My weekend started with a daddy-daughter dance with my 5-year-old on Friday night. That was a lot of fun. I learned about that event through the relationships I have with men in F3. So that's certainly something that we've enjoyed the last 3 years that we would not have experienced had I not met those men. And then, as Doghouse mentioned, Saturday was really busy. The convergence, we had 54 men come out to our region, and it's only been about a year and a half, so it's really exciting to see that many men coming from all over to converge in one spot. And it was a great workout. I led one of the stations, so I didn't experience the rest of them, but from what I heard, everything went very well, and we were able to acknowledge some of the packs who have really stood out over the last year or so. So it's always good to pass that along and give some acknowledgement to the men who are helping us grow. One point I recall from, I think Ricola mentioned in his COT, in just the 6 months since we've taken over as an SLT, our region has grown by 22 or so FNGs, which is really exciting to see. The growth has just been off the charts, and for us, it's been good to get our feet under us and survive this first and second year together.
It's kind of like the pilgrims hitting, the new world and making it through that first Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
particularly because the cold you guys have to withstand. It's pretty good. How big a city is that?
So where we are, we encompass Shorewood, Shanahan, and Manuka, and none of them are all that large in and of themselves, under 10,000 per
Yeah.
area. But we draw from now Morris, which is where we've planted our most recent AO a couple months ago. That's a couple thousand people, and folks come into that area from outside of Morris as well. So all told, I would say 40,000 people would be a lot for this area.
Wow. Then you're getting some pretty good numbers there to
We
get that many guys.
yeah, what we found, and I'm sure you've seen this at various points in the last 15 years, you get those handful of guys who are just so passionate about it and want to give it away. They can't help themselves but bring it up and identify men who really need this in their lives. And that you really can't get in the way of that at some
Right.
point. You just
Right.
can't
Right.
stop it.
Can't stop it. You're right about that. And it'll just take places and we're like, you can't really make a plan. It's
Mhm.
No.
just like Naperville. I don't even remember how that started or why. And I remember when I first started hearing about this place, Naperville. And I look it up on the map. I'm like, oh, it's a suburb of Chicago, but it really isn't. I
Right.
mean, because I've been there,
Pretty far.
it's pretty far. Like, why Naperville? Same thing with Toledo. Like, why Toledo? But there's just some places. Katy, Texas, it's just kind of a random. If there's guys there that are on fire for it, it takes off. And if
Yeah.
there's not, it doesn't matter if you're in Houston, dead Houston, it wouldn't matter. I mean, it's where the guys are for whatever reasons. It's an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, absolutely. We can come back to that because there are areas that I'm a little bit surprised we haven't grown more in. But as you said, it's just the right men in the right place at the
Right,
right
guys. Yes,
time.
the leaders. It breaks down to the leaders. We figured that out pretty early on, that
Right.
it wasn't the location or the AO availability of AOs. I mean, if you got the right guy, it works in a Walmart parking lot, in the middle of nowhere.
Mhm.
If you got the right guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
three good guys is better than 100.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back to where we are because there's a really exciting story that I think we've got some potential to grow into coming out of the weekend, specifically about how we look at our AOs and the relationships we're building with the communities that actually own that space. We don't. We obviously don't own it. So
Mhm.
I'll come back to that in a moment. Uh, excuse me, Doghouse, before we get too far along, for the folks who are maybe joining us for the first time or curious about what we're talking about here, could you go through our core principles, mission, and credo, please?
Gladly. One, we are open to all men. Two, we are free of charge. Three, we are held outside, rain, shine, heat, or cold, except for this podcast. We're inside. Four, we're peer led in a rotating fashion. And five, we always end in a circle of trust.
All right.
At F3, we have a mission made up of a task and a purpose, and that is to plant, grow, and serve small workout groups of men for the invigoration of male community leadership.
All right.
And we have a credo to leave no man behind, but leave no man where we find him.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We've already talked a little bit about where we found each other over the weekend, but I'd love to know if you look back on the last week to 2 weeks, if any workouts in particular, any events in particular stood out to you. Dredd, would you like to go first, or should I give it to Doghouse first?
Here, I'll go first. This last week I didn't work out at all because I had one of those weeks where I was OBE from my mammon. So, I mean, my day job is I'm an attorney. I was in trial. I was getting up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, going to work immediately, and then working all day, and then coming home in the evening. And I didn't get any of the three Fs this past week. The week before that, though, I was in Alta, Utah for F3 ski, which we do every year. So it kind of balances out because 2 weeks ago, I was with 40 dudes and we, spent, total time together, skiing and getting all three Fs there. And it was a great event. It's been a great event for probably 10 years. So that's what I did 2 weeks ago. And then this past week, it was what it was. And I'll try to get back on the track tomorrow morning well, Super Bowl's tonight, right? So if I actually make it, if it's not a blowout, it might keep me up pretty late. Who knows? But when you fall off the horse, the key is when you fall off that horse, whatever happens, and for me, it's usually mammon or injury, and that'll keep me out of the gloom. And if that happens, then I try to get right back out there as soon as I possibly can. Even though I know while I've been gone, these guys are getting stronger, I'm getting weaker. And that first week or so, 2 weeks is usually bad. But then you catch back up. So key is to
Mhm.
get back out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Doghouse, what about you? I have a feeling I know what you're going to talk about, but why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, convergence start right at the top, right? So yesterday, as you mentioned in the pre-show, or you touched on it in the show too, 54 men came out to Three Rivers. A great turnout. We had, I think, three regions represented, if not four. I know we had guys from Naperville and Plainfield. Appreciate all those guys coming down. Three Rivers for us is it's our culture, AO, where we have our Three Rivers Fridays. And I think we did a good job of showcasing off the region and specifically at that AO. We had the sandbag game that underdog queued. That was a lot of fun. The men wore a rucksack and it was basically capture the flag style. That kind of very much goes along with our culture of our competition games. And then we did another one that Mr. Burns queued up. We were within the rectangle, moving the coupons around while one PAX does a out and back lunge walk. What were they? Lunge walk, Bobby Hurley's. So Definitely representative of our region, very well run, very well cued, and great convergence overall. Great way for us to kick off our Winter Warrior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for myself, I'll go back to Thursday. We have an AO called the Campus
Mhm.
in Manuka, and we have a 4:15 a.m. workout that leads to
Wow.
our 5:15 a.m. workout. A little bit of a break in between, but we typically get at the extra early boot camp at 4:15 a handful of guys, maybe five to eight's a good number for us. But when we have a VQ, we certainly pull out all the stops, try to get there as much as we can. And we had a VQ from one of our newer guys who has probably only posted 20 or so times, so it's fairly new for our region. Someone that early in F3 to step up and grab the queue, but it's also very much encouraged. And what I enjoyed about the workout itself was that Pancake, who led the workout, brought a lot of himself to it. He's a
Mhm.
former college football player. He played offensive line at Northwestern, and he brought a lot of the drills that they would do in football, short sprint box drills. We ran 400s on the track. A lot of it was getting a glimpse into what makes him who he is. And I really enjoyed that. I thought that was not only do we need more sprint work in our lives in general, but I really enjoyed the personality that he brought to the beatdown itself. And then, of course, the COT was all about finding F3. We just happened to run into him at a local bakery. He was with his family. We were getting coffee after the
Oh, a
after the
retired
beatdown.
offensive lineman at a bakery. That sounds like the beginning of a joke.
Yeah. So I enjoyed the workout. I enjoyed hearing the story again. I was there the day we met him. It took a couple weeks to get him out, but I think it's a great example of how this organically does grow, and you just can't get in the way of it, as we were saying. There's just no way to. All right, so let me move us into the second F portion. That's really the spotlight on the packs. That's the Q&A. Most of the folks that we've had on the show are from our local Shamanwood region or from Naperville or from Plainfield. But I wanted to get a bit into your story and down in North Carolina. Doghouse has a couple questions he'll kick us off with, and I'll take it over once he's done.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. As Puddles mentioned, yeah, we kind of have a format we like to follow. So being tax number three, let's have some fun with it and see where your answers come from.
Okay.
So, very first question, when and how did you find F3?
Well, I was there when it started. So I guess I have to say where I found the campus. I was uh, uh, 40 pounds overweight, uh, sitting by the side of my community pool here in Charlotte, feeling sad, clowny, fat, and unhappy. And a dude from my neighborhood was walking around the pool, and I knew him pretty well. And he was looked like he's really good shape. I hadn't seen him in a while. That he's got his shirt off and he's like flexing in all the wives and all that stuff. So he gets to me and I said, "What the heck you been doing?" He goes, "I've been doing this workout with these guys out at Freedom Park, which Doghouse. I don't know if you got out there when you were here at Freedom Park, but when you were here with me, where we were, it's very close to Freedom Park physically.
Okay.
So yeah, so we still have workouts there as well. So he says, "Yeah, it's really good." Whatever. I said, "Can I join this?" And he goes, "Yeah, but you need to get in shape first," which really burnt me up because I'm a former soldier and all that. Obviously, I was fat, so it inspired me to go ahead on my own lose 40 pounds. And when I did, I called him up and I said, "Will you take me out there?" And he did. As soon as I got out there, I was like, "Man, it's what I want to do." I was looking for something to be purposeful in, and it's a bunch of guys working out by themselves out in a public park, and that's kind of how it all started for me. So when I got out there, like I said, there's probably 18 or so guys already working out, and they're still there. But OBT was part of that group, and from that group, we planted F3 at AG, where I met you, Doghouse. That's where it all started. And you actually participated in what is F3's first workout. AG is what we call it now. And man, we had what, maybe 20 guys that day? I think we had a
Yeah.
pretty good group of guys and did something 47 times harder than we did that first day. That first day we ran about 3/4 of a mile and a guy threw up. So it's evolved, quite a bit since then. I also think you went to the the workout right before AG, if I recall. You went to the Worm, right?
I made that mistake. Yes,
And not by mistake, you mean because they ran your butt off? Is that true?
they tried to drop me, and they damn near did.
Yeah, they yeah
I heard
that.
that third hit all the way from
Oh man,
up here.
it's brutal. And one of the guys came over, checkpoint, who's 65 by the way. He came over and he goes, "Hey, we got this guy from out of town someplace. He says he wants to jump in with you guys, whatever." And so he's been at three for a long time. He's a good runner, but he's really concerned about making sure we gave you a little love because the Worm guys can be a little tough. They got a little bit of a more of they're younger guys and they're more runner kind of guys, and they can be a little tough a little tough. And AG's a little bit more about the love. So anyway, I kind of strayed from your question, but that's how I found F3.
No, that's great. And it's cool being in a relatively newer region. Going out there was like we joked internally within our region. It was like a pilgrimage in a way.
Yeah,
Not to get too
right.
religious, but very much going to the Mecca of where we all started. So that was cool for sure.
And it was funny. Am I right about this? There was a Naperville guy there, and you didn't even know he was going to be there.
Right. Another Plainfield guy. Yes.
Plainfield,
Old Maid.
right? He
And
was there for a cheerleading competition for his daughter, maybe.
yep.
Yeah,
And,
right. That's
So
funny.
yeah, when we circled up on the basketball court, he came up next to me. I'm like, "What the hell's going on?" That was hilarious.
Yeah.
Of all the gym joints in the world, right?
Oh, well, that's right. You had to walk into mine. That was funny. That was really
Yeah.
funny.
So another one. My next question is, and I know you guys don't track quite as much as I think some of the newer regions do, but if you had to at least maybe take a guess, how many posts do you think you've done in F3 total?
Oh, wow. Okay.
15 years.
15 years by, I'll just conservatively say 200. So that's what, 3,000?
3,000.
Yeah. Maybe. Hard to say. Yeah, I like how a lot of the good stuff that has started after like keeping track of that kind of thing is not something we ever thought of.
Right.
And and it's almost like you got too far down the line to fix that. And because I do like when I see that, hey, it's my 1,000th post, and celebrating some of those things I think is pretty cool. But as you probably noticed, Doghouse, there's a lot of F3 kind of informal formalities that
Mhm.
Metro we don't do at all, and they emerged in other places to solve problems or whatever. And sometimes a guy will show up from somewhere else and be a little disappointed, like, yeah, you guys don't do the disclaimer and you guys leave people behind. So I'm like, yeah, a lot of that stuff arose after the fact in other places, and it's good, it's fine, but we've just never done that here. Uh, the biggest thing, for me personally, is if I go someplace else, they're nice to me, but here they're like treat me like any other jabroni. So that's one tradition I'd like to start here, being nice to Dredd. But it's too late for that too, so I'll just take it like I get it.
That's fine. Well, it was important to us that we wanted to treat you like any other packs. Obviously, you hold some status with that F3,
Yeah.
but we figured that's what you wanted. So that was important.
Of course, that's what I wanted. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And, one thing I noticed when we were out there was no flags. And I was talking to Scratch and Win about that a little bit. And it was good to get his perspective too. We'll definitely shout out to Scratch and Win. We'd love to get him on at some point. I'll reach out to him. But yeah, it was just interesting. There were a lot of things you guys probably didn't anticipate starting a little workout group, and it's interesting to see the natural progression and evolution.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. So
yeah, it's pretty wild how the flag. We had a flag, but it was really a makeshift thing, and the idea of like making special flags that just didn't start here. So sometimes a lot of workouts do have flags here. It's not the way to do it, but AG, those guys have been around for 15 years, and their attitude about it is. I mean, I don't say they take it for granted, but a lot of the things that get you excited at the outset, are no longer kind of present in the way they view it. So,
yeah, it's more ingrained. I'd say that's the feeling I got. It's more ingrained. It's like you said, taking it more not for granted, but taking it. It's a given.
Yeah, it's a given, right? It's part of our life. It's so deeply part of our lives that you go to a party or something around here and you see all the guys. There's half the guys are F3 guys, and we're just calling each other by our nicknames, and we've been doing it for such a long time that it's no longer, I guess, shocking or anything. It's just it's part of who we are. I mean, it, for instance, like there's 7 Superior Court judges in Charlotte, and like 3 of them are F3 guys, which is which is funny,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I bet your case, right? I bet you win a lot of your cases. Yeah.
Well, no, here's the
Oh,
downside of that is, we have I wouldn't want to win a case because of that, and
fair.
they wouldn't want to tip the scale because of that. So I say maybe they deny it. I say that the tendency is for them to go a little harder on me, but
Okay.
I don't mind that either. I'm after justice, not some kind of inside track, because you do that breeds cynicism, and then people don't believe in the system anymore. So I want it to be, I want it to be straight and fair. The fact that and here's another good thing about it is we talk openly, and I've never had another lawyer say, "Well, I want the judge to step down because, he's knows you through this." That's never happened, and I
Okay.
believe that a big part of the reason why it's never happened is because they view us as a group that has the highest of integrity. So
Mm,
I think that's is a testament to who we are.
mm.
Yep. Great perspective. Good point. Um, One last question I got for you, Dredd. What is your typical posting cadence throughout the week?
So I will post 5 days a week, uh, unless something else intercedes. So I generally go Monday through Friday, and then Saturday is going to be an extra day. So like I saw you on a Saturday, and I
Yep.
don't always post. I don't always post on Saturday. Really, I get up on Saturday. If I'm smoked, I'll say, okay, I'm not going to do it today. Uh, and so it's kind of dependent. So I really want to go Monday through Friday mainly, and then Saturday's an extra day. And I used to go on Sundays too, but man, I'm 62. I don't think I can go 7 days.
Mm.
Even 6 days is pushing it now for me.
Okay. Cool.
Well,
Thanks.
I'll take over at this point. I wanted to hear a little bit more about your region. Not having been there myself, most of us in our region have not been down there. Can you just describe some of your AOs and what some of your favorites are as you go through that 5 day a week cadence? Do you like
Yeah,
different
yeah.
ones, different types of workouts? What
Right.
experience is
Actually,
there?
right now I don't, because I've been struggling with like a problematic hip for a while. And so I go to mainly uh, gear workouts now. And or like I'll go to a boot camp on a Saturday, and that's where Doghouse saw me. So the ones I don't go to are like the Worm, or we have something called Ranger or something like that, which are, you're going to run in a 45-minute workout. You might run 4.5, 5 miles.
Mm,
And to do that at Doghouse, you might have noticed this, I wouldn't recommend going to one of those workouts if you can't run a 7-minute mile. And because if you can't run a 7-minute mile, you're going to be in misery. And because they're just that's what they do. And so I would say in Metro, F3 Metro, we just split, oddly enough, after all these years. But in Charlotte, there's F3 Metro, there's F3 Metro North, there's F3 Charlotte South. And we have a lot of regions packed right in here. And I'm going to say, at least in F3 Metro where I am, is we have boot camps. It's a standard boot camp like AG, like you saw Doghouse, which is most guys from most places can come and participate in that without much stress.
Mhm.
If you can run an 8-minute mile, you're fine there. And we have some boot camps that are these kind of hardcore, we call bat flipper workouts. And that's going to be the Worm. That's going to be, you better be able to run a 7-minute mile if you're going to keep up with that. We have rucking workouts. We have what I call gear workouts, which means we basically go to parking garage, cinder blocks, kettlebells, sandbags, that kind of stuff. And we have a bunch of those, almost every day. We also have core workouts, where there's no running whatsoever, which are different than gear workouts because they basically doing a boot camp without running. Uh, and I think that's pretty much the breakout of it. And we have some just kettlebell, not a lot of gear, but I think we have like 5 a day in
mm.
Metro, pretty much, except for Sunday. Sunday, I think there's a run and a ruck, and that's it. But every other day, we have multiple opportunities to be in pain.
All things being equal, the hip aside, what kind of workout do you personally prefer?
I would like to get back to those 7-minute boot camps, to be honest with you. And I haven't given up hope on being able to do it. That's the old school pearl on a string. You run fast, some, quarter mile, half mile, whatever it's going to be, stop, you know, do some, some calisthenic kind of things and then pick it up and do it again. Try to find some pull-up bars, try to find a hill, mix it up. I, that's always been my favorite kind of workout. That's how we started it.
Mhm.
And I would love to be able to get back and do that someday. Uh, but we'll see. So right now it's, I'm going to be at an 8 minute type boot camp at best, and really 4 days a week I'm hitting at what we call the hot box, which is our parking garage where we do our gear workouts. So I do a lot of gear workouts now.
Yeah. I'm really curious, given what you just said, are you as a region still attracting a lot of FNGs, given that, at least compared to where we are, the
Yeah,
standard is quite a bit higher. Like we only have a handful of guys, I think, who even could run a 7 minute mile,
yeah,
let
right.
alone an entire workout for them. Are you still getting a lot of FNGs coming in saying, I want to lose that first 40 pounds, but there's no way I can do that?
Yeah, so I I think we are, and they're tending to go to the core workouts because that's a good place for them to start. I also We also are getting a lot of younger guys,
Hmm.
who are getting into banking, they're unmarried yet, whatever. And we have workouts that we kind of funnel those guys to. So, yeah, we still do. The I don't think Charlotte ever had a lot of 40-pound overweight guys. It's kind of a fitnessy culture kind of city anyway.
Huh?
And I don't, I'll go to places and I'll see like a lot of those guys, gather around. I don't think Charlotte's ever really been like that. But we were, I think from the start, we were like skinny fat.
Uh-huh.
Guys weren't in great shape, but they weren't necessarily 40, 50 pounds overweight. I was, but
Yeah, that's why I asked. It was really interesting
yeah,
where you
right,
started your own story
right.
to think like, could you 15 years ago where you are today come into F3 today and feel like, yeah, I can do this. I can.
There are places I could go in Metro and do that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I could. But what, like I said, AG, I don't know if Doghouse, you thought AG was hard or not. I mean, the it's gotten a lot harder than it was from the first day.
Mhm.
But I think of that as a good, solid. If I want to get a workout, I don't have to be in great shape, but I can go there and get a decent workout.
Mhm.
You know.
I'd say it's probably a little bit above average for what I would think.
Okay. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Guys are like, because the funny thing about AG is we started out, we were all 43.
Mhm.
And now it's not uncommon for us to go around the COT and most of us are north of 60,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is, it's funny how that's happened. And, we have a tendency also as part of it is like, take it for granted that, when we first started to have a guy come out who was say 63 and that dude could keep, we would have been pretty surprised, right?
Mhm.
But now there's several guys that are like that, but they stayed in shape the whole time. Like Checkpoint's a pretty good example at 65. He's still running 7 minute miles, which is pretty phenomenal, right?
It is.
You know,
Yeah.
and if you don't get hurt, you don't get injured, still doing that. Now, of course, making modifications and stuff that we have to do, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think what we've proven to ourselves is that this idea that you reach a certain age and you have to like step way back. Not necessarily true.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, something you said wanted me to move into the second F portion of the Q&A, which is that you've had men who have been working out there for 15 years.
Oh yeah,
I think back to men that I've known for 15 years. Some of my closest friends today are all F3 guys.
yeah,
So I'm trying to think ahead like 12 more years. I can't imagine knowing Doghouse for 15 years. We haven't
right.
known each other that long. Um, but I want you to speak a little bit to that second F portion. And if there are certain things that you've experienced in the second F side that you feel like really creates that glue within F3. I think that's how we think of it. Is usually like the cafeteria is why guys come back.
Yep,
The
yep.
workouts why they come out, but the cafeteria is why they come back, and the other stuff. I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, in cafeteria, that was definitely a campus thing. That's definitely a thing we took from the campus. Although that they didn't call it anything. It's funny. A lot of the stuff we do there. A lot of my buddies are still campus guys. They're like, you just named. All you did was take stuff we did and name it. And I said, Yeah, I never claimed to have an idea, but that's a fact, and it is. You take a guy who's worked his butt off all week, whatever, and he hasn't had any really, just particularly when our kids were young and we're around families and got no dude time whatsoever.
Mhm.
The idea of being able to take this 35, 40 minutes, whatever the cafeteria is, and just have some good, solid guy on guy time. A lot of guys will do that even when they don't go to the workout. Say
Mhm.
they're injured or whatever, they still want to go to the cafeteria, which I think is really good. And then that's also led to nighttime, events where initially we had a Wednesday night second half event, and which I think is, and they got pretty big. And then as we matured as a region, we kind of stopped doing that. I think we do it more like once a month or something like that.
Mhm.
But that initially was a big part of it. But what's really kind of spawned out in my mind is second F, even though there's a physical aspect to it, is guys take all these trips together, like they walk the Grand Canyon, or something like that. Or I would say even F3 ski is really more of a second F event than a first event. We're doing something physical, but the idea of taking this trip, getting away, just guys, spend a lot of time as guys together on the plane or whatever. To me, that's the evolution of where the second F has ended up. And I think, for me, that's because I'm still working my butt off because got, still got two kids in college. I'm going to have three daughters. So I got three weddings to pay for. I still got to
Mhm.
work,
Yeah.
and so I'm still around. I'm still working and working the second half. And then guys who have retired, well, this is where they aren't around guys at work anymore.
Mhm.
So they're still participating from that aspect. So the second F, I agree with you. We say, what do we say? It's the magnet, the glue, and the dynamite.
Yeah.
Second F is really is the glue. It really has worked well for that.
Did you see down in your region during the pandemic, and since the work from home environment has really taken over, that becoming even more important?
Oh
I,
yeah,
I think we hear it here all the time. If I didn't
right.
have F3, I might not see other people for 4 days in a row.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I was tremendously affronted by the whole pandemic lockdown thing.
Mhm.
I was just on that side of the fence of it, and it just aggravated the crap out of me. And then one day, a guy said to me, "You're always bitching about the lockdown." He goes, "But you realize how much time we spend together now?
Mhm.
Because it's really true. We would
Yeah.
we would have to structure time together, and be super deliberate about it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not sure that COVID wasn't a boon to F3. I think it probably was.
Yeah.
When
I,
it
I
does
think that's
settle.
about when some of our regions up here really took off,
Yeah.
is trying to find something. There was a need to fill,
Yeah.
as you
Right.
named.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
whether whether you're driven to fill that need in a certain way because there's a structure that you have to stay around, I think
Right.
that just encourages you to be more
Right.
creative in how you solve
Right.
it.
Like we couldn't go to bars, we couldn't do anything, we couldn't go to coffee shops. So we were like meeting at each other's houses,
Yeah.
which we don't do anymore. That was kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
You know, guy, sitting and doing virtual work all week. I actually wasn't, my office was open, but a lot of guys were home all day long on the Zoom, and it's not the same.
Yeah.
So, we'd get together on Thursday or Friday night or whatever, and that was their only proximal interaction with other men was
Yeah.
on those things. And uh, I think that was pretty good for the organization.
Yeah. I wanted to move into the third F portion of the questions, just because I want to start to get at some of where Campos and F3 kind of diverge. I think
Yeah.
for most of the people who get the big picture, that's still something that is really important to nail down. As we talked about at the top of the show, that this wasn't your idea, like that you're not technically
No,
the first man to do this,
no,
but we
no.
tend to identify, you with Q source and with
Right.
the rest of the leadership model. So I wanted to get a sense for your perspective on that split and what became uniquely F3 versus Campos.
Yeah. So, like I said, naming stuff was a big part of it. The COT is a purely F3 thing.
Okay.
And we were so successful at drawing guys right from the start. And OBT, it was either OBT and I were leading initially. and we're trying to figure out, the backblast was a Campos thing, so we just kind of
Mm,
borrowed that, but we couldn't figure out who was there.
okay.
And I mean, I had this old Google thing I used to use, and I would write up the backblast. And I was like, "Who was there? Who
So
was
so
there?
it
Who
was
was there?"
important to you from the beginning to know who was there
Oh
and track
yeah,
that.
that was a Campos thing.
Okay.
That was Campos was and still is really good about that. About the fellowship, but there was no ends. Like at the end of a Campos workout, we would just kind of stand there and just kind of kibitz around a little bit, and then
Yeah.
I think it was up to the individual guy. I remember I was queuing one first time, whatever, and I said, "Do you mind if we say a prayer?" I just did it, and the guys were like, sure, whatever," and but it wasn't formalized in any way. So we were a little bit like that at the end of F3 when it first started, and one of our guys, OBT and I and this other guy, Muddy Muddy Albait, were running. We were doing this long run, and Albait throws out this idea. He says, "Why don't we at the end sit in a circle and kind of go around the circle and everybody say their names?" And the funny thing about this is OBT is a little bit more of a kumbaya guy than I am. And you would have thought that I would have said, "We're not going to do that, Scooey. We're not going to do that."
Right. Right.
But OBT was like, "Nah, we're not doing that. It's kumbaya, whatever." And but I had been struggling to get the names, and I thought, hey, if we were in a circle
Hmm.
and each guy said his name, it would be far easier for me to remember. So I said, what the hell? Let's give it a shot, right? OBT says, okay. So we try it. And man, right from the start, it was really good. I mean,
So it's just a
guys,
tool of necessity in the beginning.
like
Yeah.
everything else,
Yeah.
like
Oh,
everything else, right? Yeah. So it
yeah.
had no, it wasn't because we were like, oh, yeah, we're going to, this is going to be our third F thing. It was a tool of necessity. It helped us get the count, right? It helped us get the names. And then we started with the announcements, prayers, that kind of thing. And then, it just morphed into what it is, to
Hmm.
which now, I mean, it became a core principle. And then OBT wrote
Yeah.
the core principles.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
he came back one day and he's like, here are the 5 core principles. And I looked at that and I was like, man, this is brilliant. And I teased him. I said, I noticed you're including the circle of trust, which you thought was kumbaya crapola. And he said, no, yeah. Anyway, that became a core principle. And I don't think I've ever been to an F3 workout where they didn't do it. Now, if you go to Greenwood, South Carolina, they're a little more Baptisty, whatever, you know. And if you go to Seattle, it's going to be like really spiritual or something.
Hmm.
I don't know what you guys do. I figure most of you are Catholics. Maybe it's kind of got a Catholic ring to it.
Hmm.
And to me, this is F3, right? Wherever you are, it should reflect the packs there.
Hmm.
The idea isn't for us to say, get in a circle, say the Lord's Prayer
Right.
or whatever, right? That's because the faith is something, belief in something outside yourself. The idea is that each guy, that basically it reflect the consensus of the local group, but each guy who is the Q. So if you're the Q in Metro and you get in there and you want to do some kind of, Mother Earth spiritually thing, all right. I mean, all I say to a guy, if a guy, well, every once in a while, a guy gets his back up and he's like, we can't do it this way. But I was like, listen, if if you don't believe what the guy's saying, just bow your head and shut your mouth for 30 seconds and block it out.
Hmm.
I mean, that we're grown men, we can do that. We don't have to make an issue out of every single thing. And uh, for the most part, that works. I see it on Slack every once in a while. A guy will ask us as if we're like the arbiters of anything.
Right.
What do we do if somebody It's like,
It's
just drive on, man. Focus on the things you agree on, and
yeah.
don't be divisive about things we don't have to fight about. As long as you're adhering to the core principles, it says COT. It doesn't say COT Nicene Creed.
Hmm.
COT. Get in there, bow your head, say whatever you're going to say. Q gets to decide. Next time, if you want to say the Nicene Creed, say the freaking Nicene Creed.
Hmm.
You know,
Well, it goes
but
in
don't
line with being free to lead. This
free to
is
lead, right? Exactly.
You
my
don't like
Exactly.
it,
religion.
do it
This is
your
what
way.
Do
yeah.
it your way next time.
Right.
Hmm.
But don't when he's doing it his way, don't don't be a jackass.
Hmm.
Just be silent. You
Right.
know,
And
be respectful.
ironically, we talked about this yesterday at our convergence. Now, I was trying to get the message across to the men as we were presenting our third F award that that none of us owns this. And there is no ownership of F3. Like it's not something we can, just like the AOs, we rent that space.
Right,
We rent
right,
that opportunity.
Mhm.
We have to bring everything we've got every day to earn our 1%. And it's not ours to keep. It's ours to grow and to give away. And that's I think probably, and I'm opening this up to you because I don't want to speculate on your behalf, but I imagine that's where documenting some of what F3 actually is, putting it in some sort of repeatable format, like a book, and
right,
then making sure that at least people who want to buy into this have some guardrails, might be too strong of a word, but at
right.
least what are we trying to get at here? Like, what are we really trying to accomplish at the end of the day? Is it just physically getting stronger, those of us who are in the gloom, or is there a bigger purpose? I was curious if that also was tied to previous models, or if that, as you're writing the book, as you're putting the F3 model together, was collaborative in any way, or is that purely from what
Yeah,
you were seeing in the world that
yeah.
needed to be said?
It's collaborative. I guess the underlying thing is that Q source is the F3's manual of virtuous leadership. So what we wanted to do was to capture what we were seeing,
Mhm.
and we felt the need to create this manual, because people were asking questions, and we could have called it best practices or something like that. But, we decided to make it like an Army field manual. So I
Mhm.
was, in the Army as a soldier, we had field manuals. And the field manuals came out of I forget where the doctrine writers are, Pentagon or whatever.
Mhm.
And what they did was take the lessons that they learned, that the Army had learned, going back to von Steuben, I mean, going back all the way, and to catalog those around stories. Because if you read an Army field manual, it's super interesting because they'll tell us a story about a battle,
Mhm.
and then they'll say this is what we learned from that battle, and that provides you with a principle, and that principle can be applied in different situations, not the same exactly, all the same, but because the situations change. So the difference between principle and a rule is something you can't violate. A principle is something you need to apply if you can,
Yeah.
right? And it provides you with a kind of a basis to do so. So we tried to use that same idea and say, if you govern yourself by principles, and those principles don't change by the person right in front of you, they're always the same, then you will have some sort of consistency across the organization. So that if a guy shows up from Naperville and he shows up in Greenwood, South Carolina, he's not looking at something completely different. It
Mhm.
has local idiosyncrasies, which it should have,
Mhm.
but the baseline principles are the same, and he can plug in. And of course, if anybody knows me, I'm a big patriot. I think the American way of system is the best way, and it's the same idea. If it doesn't matter if you're in Tempe, Arizona, or Bangor, Maine, the American principles are the same.
Mhm.
There are the local idiosyncrasies, but the American principles are the same. And we thought F3 should reflect that. And that was the whole idea about the Q source is if you read the Q source and you got a copy of it, so I guess you're looking at it,
Mhm.
is we say prayer, for instance, in the third F, prayer is important. Talking with the creator, the daily discipline of talking with the creator in order to build faith. Note how we said that. We're not Yahweh, we're not saying Christian God,
Mhm.
you know, the creator, talking with the creator in order to build faith. You can apply that to any faith system, and should, because we believe it's virtuous to do that. How you do it, up to you.
Mhm.
Manner, up to you. But it's a virtuous thing that we believe a man should do on a daily basis, whether it takes 10 seconds or it takes 10 minutes or however he does it, right? And we hope we're consistent with that across the board when we say, here's our principles, here's what we live by, here's the book, here's what we do. Do with it what you want,
Mhm.
right? Do with it what you want. So that was the goal of that. And if you ask me, was it done via consensus? Well, you've spoken with me long enough to know that none of this stuff could have came out of my idiot brain. I'm I'm talking, listening, cataloging, talking, listen, cataloging, writing, asking, what do you think? What do you think? Modifying. The basis of what is now the Q sorts was in existence for a long time. And I got a lot of feedback, pushback, and changed much of it because guys would read it and say, I don't think you're right about that. And
Mm.
I'd say, oh, okay. And I think the biggest thing is, biggest example what I'm talking about is the original version had scripture in it.
Okay.
And we have scripture, you can see it on Slack or whatever. And it's not just New Testament, it's Old Testament, New Testament, because I'm saying the Bible provides even if you don't believe that what it says is the word of God, you would agree that a lot of it's wise,
Mhm.
right? I mean, Proverbs are wise, wherever they came from. So that's why I said it. And I was convinced by other men that that would be a barrier to entry to some,
Mhm.
that some men would say, oh, it's a religious organization. I don't want to do that. So I took it out.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, a guy will say to me, I think you should have kept it in. I was like, okay, well, look, it's available for you on there,
Right.
man.
Right.
I just don't want it in the book because I agreed with the men who told me, I agreed with them. They persuaded me that it would be more effective if we didn't have the scripture in it. And I think that's borne out. I think that's correct, that it is, that's been borne out. Uh, and I'm glad we did it that way.
Yeah. It's really interesting to see how all the principles obviously build on each other. There's a system in place, and how that mirrors up to how men start in one place and build on the previous
Yep.
elements. We get a lot of men, as I mentioned, we're a fairly new, fairly young region. It's very rare in our region to find a man who even has 700 posts. We've got a handful who are above, but for the most part, most of us don't. I think there are maybe two men who have over 1,000. So that's super rare coming from the Plainfield region, Naperville before that. So many of our men, I think this is part of the culture of a newer region. I'm curious to hear what you feel coming from the oldest region. Uh, we've got a lot of men who are still in the get right stage. Our
Yeah.
region is still in the get right stage, where we're kind of growing together. The men in the region are on pace in the same way. A lot of
Yeah.
the men have not read Q Source yet. They haven't been to a Q Source conversation. Um, they aren't yet involved in the faith-based or charitable aspects of what we do. But does that track with your experience of other regions who are still growing? And is there a trajectory in which you can say, like, yeah, this is where we really started feeling like we were moving out of the get right and getting a couple steps forward and maintaining that growth?
Yeah. So a couple of points about that. In fact, we talked about it this morning because we happen to be in Get Right in the local Q source here. And now this is like our sixth time through it or something like that. It's probably more than that, actually, seventh time through it. And so every single time we go through it, something else pops up that we didn't think about. It's pretty fascinating. So, but the Get Right, what we're talking about today is the Get Right is not static. There's not a point where you've gotten right
Mhm.
and then okay, now I'm like it's all kind of happening at the same time if you think about it, right? So to live right, you have to get right, but you should start living right before you are perfectly right. And in fact, you're never perfectly right.
Mhm.
It's really what it really means is when you have gotten to a certain point where you're you're exerting uh, dominion over your fitness. You can control what you're putting in your mouth. You are posting workouts without some guy dragging you there. Your relationship with your wife is healthy and accelerating.
Mhm.
You if you walk through all those things. And at that point, then you can start to influence other people. That's the live right. Beforehand, I mean, you can't really give away what you do not have. And if you're just struggling in your own life with your own sin pattern or whatever, addiction or whatever, if you're still struggling with that, you're not really going to be able to help another man yet. I mean, you're gonna have to get control of that first.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you could say, well, when does the man know that he's
Mhm.
gotten right enough that he can start to, and I say he doesn't ever know, he just starts doing it. He just starts doing it. He starts to influence other men. He starts to pass off positive habits. He starts to hold accountable. He starts to correct. He starts just to do all those things. And the speed at which he does it, the skill with which he does it is just completely unique to every guy. And it's simply a matter of, where he started. So,
It's so
you
important
know,
for men to hear in the beginning, I think,
yeah, right.
because even if you're not even if you're stuck in live right or you've moved backwards, it's always important to know where's this going. Well,
Yeah,
ultimately,
right,
what's the road ahead that I'm trying um, to follow so that at least I'm on track. I'm
right,
going in the right
right.
direction. That big picture, I
So,
think, is so important for men to hear.
I mean, the ultimate, when we talk about the leave right legacy, when we say that your legacy is not a statue, it's built through the other men that you served. You know,
Mm.
the time and the fondness with which a man is remembered is a completely related to how much he poured into other men. I
Mm,
mean, absolutely. Abe Lincoln never wrote a book, right? So it's his legacy was in what he had done, and it was other men talking about what he had done that built it.
mm,
And so that's going to be the key. And for us, or what our belief system here on our leadership thing is, it's the creation of teams and delegating and scaling what you're doing. Is that's how you leave right. So if you if you take everything that you've ever learned and you transfer that to one other man so that he can then do it, that's your legacy. If you do it to two other men, you've doubled your legacy. Three, you've tripled it. If those three guys do it with three other guys, 9x, right?
mm,
And so that's what we're trying to say. Well, what do you mean transfer? The system of virtuous leadership, the ethics of it, those things of seeking advantage for your community, for your groups, your communities, your teams, seeking advantage, inspiring and influencing them to move towards that, and having guys pick up the baton of that and doing it on their own. That's the whole key. So whenever I see a guy doing something, and I know when that guy first started that he was barely just getting through the day. He
mm,
showed it up at F3 because he was out of shape or his marriage was coming apart or whatever. Now the guy has started some, speed for need or whatever you want, whatever you come up. We started some F3 ski or whatever. He's the Q of that, and that's his passion.
mm,
And I say that's F3 right there because F3 does not specify what your third F is supposed to be. We don't tell you, you should go out and start this, you should go out and start that.
mm,
We tell you, you should go out and solve your life problem. Whatever it is that bugs the bejesus out of you, devise a solution to that, put it into motion, and find other men to help you with it who have a like mind. And that's the legacy machine. That's why we call it the dynamite, right?
yeah,
Just explodes. And that's that's why we encourage men to do it that way. So I would say in the life of a region, what I see now in Metro, since we've been around so much for so long, is there's so many guys that have started ministries of some kind that came into F3 just really just trying to solve their own problems that are now helping dozens, if not hundreds of other men to solve their problems. And that develops over time within a region. Because the tendency amongst men living now, this is part of sack clown syndrome, is we either wait to be told what to do or we join in with ventures that someone else has devised to which we may or may not be wholly committed.
mhm,
So I'm not saying we always use Habitat for Humanity as an example. And I don't say it because I dislike Habitat. I say it because it's the low hanging fruit of public service. If you can't think of what else to do, go out and do a Habitat house, right? Well, do you really care about that? Maybe not. Well, your heart's not in it. Why are you doing it? Well, I don't know what else to do.
right,
Well, what do you really care about? you know, Sex trafficking. Some guy would come up to me and say, I can't stop thinking about sex trafficking. I'm like, I never thought about sex trafficking.
yeah,
I mean, what do you want to do about it? Well, I want to get this organization. Okay, okay, man, I'll help you do that. I
yeah.
don't,
That
you know,
It's
Whatever
interesting
it is.
that that was the first conversation I had one-on-one with our PAX when I took over as third FQ last year. I reached out to them individually and said, well, what do you care about?
What do you care? Right.
Like, because I could create something for all of us. We can go and find low-hanging fruit and we can certainly replicate what's been done before, but I'd rather know man to man, like what is your as you said, what's keeping you up at night?
That's right.
What are you
That's right.
passionate about? That way we can
Right.
start to build things around where we already know there's
Right.
passion, as opposed to trying to
Yeah.
force people into something that they're
And
going to show
then
up to, but they don't really care about.
right. And then the passions they cross over and they intersect. So, like my D2X is to teach and lead accelerating men. I'm not any good really with a guy that's suffering in drug dependency or sexual addiction or something like that. I mean, it's just not, it just isn't, it's not my dolphin, right? Now you
Mhm.
get a guy who's already in motion, I can help that guy. That's my D2X. But Charlotte, we have a rescue mission for guys who are going through drug and alcohol dependency, and it's faith based, doesn't take any government money. Great thing. One of our guys, in fact, it was Slaughter years and years ago, who said, let's put a workout at the Charlotte Rescue Mission. And I said, good luck with that, man. You talk
Mhm.
about these guys are recovering drug addicts and you're going to get them up on Saturday morning. He goes down there, immediate success.
Mhm.
As it turns out, these guys, once they get sober, they want something to do. I
Mhm.
mean, you ever want to fill your heart with the power of F3, go to the Charlotte Rescue Mission. It's called Mission Impossible, MIP, on a Saturday morning. I don't know if you went down there, Doghouse, when you were here,
That
but
goes.
it's because guys will come up to you. I mean, these are guys that've been on the street, and they will come up to you and say, "Thank God for what you did." I mean,
Mhm.
and you're like, "I didn't do anything." But here's the point of my story in telling that. Once those guys graduate, then they go out in the workforce or whatever. And there's other guys who help them get jobs. And there's other guys who help them find a permanent place to stay. Like a guy got in his head, we need a lot of these guys will go live in these crappy motels and they get sucked back into the life. They bought an old condo, 4-unit condo, refurbished, and they rent it out to these guys
Mhm.
away from I mean, that was what that guy cared about.
Mhm.
Then guys started bringing them to church. So the church I go to, it's called Waypoint, which was started by an F3 guy and now is, very vibrant worship community. We've got a bunch of these guys who came out of MIP who are sobered up and now they worship with us. So here's the point of my story. That's where I pick them up because now they're accelerating. So we had a Bible study this morning before we have the services. We had 23 people in there.
Mhm.
23 people at a Bible study before the worship service.
Mhm.
And maybe 7 of them are graduates of the Charlotte Rescue Mission. 7 guys who were lost to drug and alcohol addiction that were redeemed through the Charlotte Rescue Mission and then picked up as they came through it by F3 and they now have jobs, places to stay, and are now worshiping. And now I'm sharing the word with them because that's where I am. And so the whole thing intersects anyway. It does. And like now, and I'll watch one of these guys because we've got several of them who have been with us for a while. They're dragging guys to us. They're part, like it's not us and them. It's not like, oh, it's the F3 guys from East Charlotte. That's kind of the rich side of town coming down and helping the guys from the West side. It's kind of the lesser rich, and it's like East and West. It's not like that. It's like you're in F3, we're all together. It's pretty fascinating
Mhm.
how that's happened. And I think it's because we don't draw those lines.
I'm glad you went in that direction because I think that brings us to a good place to wrap up the conversation. Coming full circle, your initial interest was I just need to get in better shape. I want to
Yeah, right.
look and feel and act more like that guy I saw at the pool.
That's right.
That's who I want to be.
I want what
But
he has.
yeah, and at some
Right.
point, I know again this is projecting a bit, but at some point, I imagine the goal has become to somewhat, this is going to sound strange, but somewhat erase F3 in that it's not a thing I do on Saturday or Monday through Friday morning. It's not a shirt I wear. This is just how I live my life now. And this is a
Mhm.
way you can live your life too. There's no borders to it. There's no boundaries
Right.
to it.
That's right.
It's less
It,
about what you do and more about who you become through this process.
it's a movement.
Right.
It's a movement, not a museum, because a museum becomes a mausoleum. Heard my
Mhm.
pastor say that this morning. So it's a movement, and we always want to keep it as a movement. That's why we have the whole lizard, thing.
Mhm.
And we never want to become so encrusted with bureaucracy, regardless of how
Mm.
necessary it might seem at the time, that we become static. We always want to be able to take advantage of an opportunity and try it and be free to fail. Like uh, I think maybe somebody's like, "Are you ever going to write a book again?" He's like, and I was like, "I'm trying to think of a name, and maybe you should be free to fail," because the idea. And I had a lady come up to me today at church, not an F3, not even an F3 wife, and she said, "Oh well, we're going to do a girls' retreat, ladies' retreat, a 1 day ladies' retreat on the off year because they always do them on the even year, whatever." And I said, "Oh," she goes, I said, "So you think it'll work?" She goes, what's it matter? If it works, we'll do it again. If it doesn't, we won't." And I just go like that because I didn't want to say that's so F3 right there. And I believe that F3 has influenced that church a lot. And this idea that we try something without a committee, without a budget, just with an idea and the guys who care about it putting it into motion through leadership and gathering like-minded guys and not being afraid to fail,
Mhm.
not being afraid at all. In fact, courting failure, saying, "Look, it might succeed, and if that's great, it does. It's great if it does. But if it doesn't, look at what we'll have learned. We'll have learned that this particular way doesn't work, and we'll have learned how to do it better." And that, if we lose that in F3, we've lost something super important.
Mhm.
That's why whenever somebody throws it out, like, "Hey, let's buy a building, start a gym," I'm like, anything with that kind of logistical tail to it is going to slow us down.
Mhm.
It's like putting something in your rucksack that you don't really need, and because you don't really need it, it creates weight, and weight times distance equals fatigue. The lighter you can move, the faster you can move, and then the less investment you have, the less likely it is that you will be concerned about, making your nut, right? Instead, you're concerned about accomplishing your mission.
Right.
So as we pass off, well, you guys know CSD, right? Been on the board for a while
Yeah.
from
Carmen San
Naperville.
Diego.
Yeah, Carmen San
Mhm.
Diego. And it's like totally embraces that idea. Entrepreneur guy will try anything, right?
Mhm.
That is exactly our mindset. Give it a shot. If it works, tell everybody about it. If it doesn't work, don't do it again and tell everybody about it.
Mhm.
So somebody else doesn't make the same mistake. And that's
Mhm.
what our hope is ultimately, that we continue to embrace that idea.
Yeah. And any other closing thoughts you want to leave? As I've been saying, our region, Shaman Wood, is the primary audience for this. Obviously, we get some reach elsewhere. Can't
Mm.
stop it. Can't get in the way of it. That's just how it
Right.
happens. Any closing thoughts for new regions like ours, or hell, any region younger than 15 years? Because that's
Right.
everybody else.
Yeah, yeah. I guess what I would say uh is just keep doing the thing.
Mhm.
Plant, grow, serve men's small workout groups in order to invigorate male community leadership. Just keep doing it. And that, OBT and I came up with that early on when we realized F3 was going to be its own animal. We got in my office at the whiteboard and I said, we got to have a mission statement. We just kept going over it and over it and over it. And my thing is, don't get don't get don't get stuck, just trying to make something perfect. I just said, let's get it on the wall. We'll change it as we go. We've never changed it.
Mhm.
I mean, it's been at least 14 years since that we came up with that. And if you're you're like, what do we do? What should we do? Plant new workouts, grow the ones you already have, and serve the packs. If you do that, then you will invigorate male community leadership. And if you do that, then your community is going to prosper. And if your community prospers, you'll get more guys.
Mm,
the whole thing works. So never stop planting, never stop growing, never stop serving. And anytime a guy has an idea, just ask him, does that go to plant, grow, serve, or a combination of two or three?
mm.
If it does, let's give it a shot. If it doesn't, why should we do that? Right? That'd be the most basic way I would say to evaluate what you should do next.
Okay. Well, that
Kind
was
of
one
the
of the
North
questions
Star,
we
right?
usually ask is what's next, but that's a
What's
great way to
next?
answer that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
All right,
Because
Doghouse.
I'm still waiting for a workout in Gary, Indiana.
You might get a Bear stadium before you get a workout there if you're patient enough.
Yeah,
Well, we can borrow from Mission Impossible because when I did get to do that, and I do want to just say that was one of the more moving. I called puddles after Raleigh in the arena, and that was probably the most impactful application of F3 I'd ever seen. Also at a treatment facility,
yeah, it's amazing.
and
It's amazing.
Mhm.
yeah, we did it right outside of Bank of America Stadium. So we went right through the oh, what do they call the tunnel? Hear me roar, keep
Yeah,
pounding, keep
keep
pounding.
pounding.
Yeah.
And that part of Charlotte where you guys were when you did that was you could not go there.
Mm.
I mean, I've lived here for 26 years, and the guy who started Charlotte Rescue Mission, he bought that land for nothing. And the Bank of America Stadium was there, but that side of Bank of America Stadium was lost, and the people who lived there were lost. And you go there now, and you're like, wow, it's pretty decent. It's like, and you see women by themselves walking through that tunnel. No worries whatsoever. And it's a reclamation project. It's pretty fast. Obviously, I'm proud of my city, and I am for a lot of reasons because it's a city that we all don't agree on everything, and we're not all of the same religion, but we have this kind of common core of wanting a safe and righteous place where people can make a buck, prosper, and raise a family. And so far, it's been that kind of place. And Doghouse, you kind of witnessed one of the many little quirky things that a guy had an idea and started without any right from the start. The guy's name was Tony Marciano. Right from the start, he said, "I'm never taking a buck from the government because as soon as I do, then I'm beholden to them."
Mm.
Mm.
And because it's tempting, right? But he never would. And Charlotte's actually full of things like that have started here that are like that. It's I'm glad you got a chance to see it because it's pretty fascinating. Pretty unique place.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. All right. I appreciate that closure. Doghouse, I know we've got some info only announcements to get through, and then I'll close this with a really quick COT.
Yeah, thanks, Puddle. So next Saturday at the DMZ in Plainfield, we'll be having their convergence. If you're listening and you're a winter warrior, that'll count for a double post. Couple weekends coming out. Saturday, March 7th, we have the Manhattan Irish Fest 5K. The following weekend, March 14th, we have the Shamrock Shuffle in Shorewood. And also on March 14th, we have the Polar Plunge down in Braidwood. I know it's a well-attended, well-served event. On April 11th, one of our big hallmark events, key tentpole events in the region, the Forgotten Warrior Memorial 5K down there in Shanahan. And finally, our big event. Puddles, how about you announce this one? Because you've been core to this, and I know this has kind of been your passion project. So please.
Yeah, the inaugural Hugs and Ks 5K race to support the Shorewood Hugs organization, where we were at their annual event last night. It's a fantastic local organization that supports women in need, and we'll be getting our first community event off the ground, and hopefully one of many, many more years to come. It's
I
April 18th. All right. I'll close with a quick COT as we always do. It's a bit of I, I read this a couple weeks ago. I think it popped up in a social feed somewhere, and I screenshotted it because it hit me. And as a Stoic philosophy studier student, it hit me in the beginning because it was really hard to hear. But then as I went through, it made a little bit more sense. It said, "You are not responsible for your initial thought or reaction to an event. That's conditioning. But you are responsible for your second thought and every action that follows. Between stimulus and response, there's a space, and that space is where you're built. I thought that was really powerful. I thought that we don't often appreciate that space and the opportunity to change our reaction to a stimulus, that we get to choose how we respond to something that initially maybe we didn't get right the first time. So I will share that with the men and encourage you to think through this next week when you feel something initially, maybe give it a beat, and don't be afraid to come back to it and course correct. Whether that's making an apology or making a new choice, you always have the option to and the responsibility to own your second and every action after that. I
I like that. So what we say is here, um, whenever somebody says or does something that you think is provocative and justifies a response from you in kind, s- just get into the habit of first saying, "What if I don't react?" and try to come up with what would happen if I don't react. And if the answer is nothing, then don't. Same idea, right?
yeah, it's interesting.
It's kind of like dealing with children, right? Children
Yeah,
starts crying.
right,
If I don't sell it, they're not gonna.
right,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, you want to flip the bird and cut them off. What if you don't? Well, because I had clients who would say this, well, if somebody would do, this, I would do something provocative. We need to respond. I said, what if we don't? He'll think we're weak. I said, are you weak? He says, no. I said, then what do you care? What do you think?
right.
Right?
Doesn't change
Love it.
anything.
Doesn't change anything.
Yeah,
Doesn't change anything.
that's great.
I
All right.
like that. That's stoicism, huh? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
that's
Okay.
that's a build on it for sure.
Good.
Not
Good.
directly from Marcus Aurelius or any of
I was
those
going to say,
folks,
I didn't
but
know you guys were some Marcus Aurelius guys out there.
oh
That's
yeah,
good.
absolutely. We've got a philosophy channel in our Slack. It's a good
Good.
time.
Good
Yeah.
stuff.
All right. Well, I'll close with a quick Namorama. We know where this comes from now. I'm glad to have the backstory. Three of us sitting in a circle. But I appreciate it. My name is Bill Skaronsky. I'm 47 and I'm Puddles.
Puddles. John Christ, 41. Doghouse.
Doghouse. Oop,
Dave Redding, Dredd 62.
Dread.
Dredd.
Yeah.
Respect.
Thank
Respect.
you very much for being here. Thank you everyone for listening. I appreciate the time and most importantly, I appreciate everything you've done for men like us who really need this in our lives.
My honor.
All right,
Thank you
so
for the
we'll
gift.
see everyone else in the gloom in the next couple of days. Take care.
Great. Thanks, guys.